Is it time to panic about recruiting for Michigan Wolverines football? Welcome to the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show. The transfer portal is closed, and I'm sure you've heard about Michigan's gains and losses post spring game. We're wondering if Michigan is struggling with the transfer portal and recruiting, or if there's something else going on here that maybe hasn't surfaced yet. My name is Cliff. With me, as always, is Mac. Mac, we expected some change up here after the spring game, but some of it rightly took us by surprise. And so my questions are, how has NIL possibly affected this situation? Were Ohio State fans right that Tony Alford can't recruit? And just flat out, when is it time to panic?
It's time to panic right now. So here's the thing. We're going to give Tony Alford the benefit of the doubt right now because he just got there. The only kind of crappy thing about this is that Sharon Moore has been on the job for 4 months now. It was a pretty consistent coaching turnover from the Harbaugh administration, if you will, to the Sharon Moore administration. So why we have seen such a fall off in recruiting is kind of perplexing. Michigan's in the mid 40s on the 247 rankings for the 2025 recruiting class right now. That sucks. Now, I kind of came to this realization today that commitments don't really mean a whole lot in today's game. I'll get to Marquise Davis in a second because that's what you were kind of alluding to. But overall, commitments are kind of finicky with the recruiting game today because you can have a commit who will commit. You can have a recruit commit, and then all of a sudden their commitment is flipped to another school. Well, that doesn't mean, or that means that they weren't actually really committed to the first place, doesn't it? Because the definition of committed is that you are committed. You are going to that particular school. If a player can be flipped, then that just kind of goes to show you that there are ways to get players to flip, and that includes before and after the commitment process. So just because Marquise Davis commits to Kentucky does not necessarily mean that Michigan is completely and totally out of the picture. I mean, there is a lot of time left before the December signing day period. I mean, things can change. The thing is, though, is that it's kind of concerning that Michigan hasn't really made any waves yet with recruiting. I mean, they've gotten a few. They've got Nate Marshall committed the other day. He's a 4-star defensive lineman, edge rusher, I think. Really big recruitment. That's huge. But for every Nate Marshall, you're going to have a Marquise Davis, where you land the big name and then you lose out on another name. And that sucks. But Michigan has kind of had a history of doing that sort of thing where, especially under Harbaugh, recruiting was kind of an enigma where we didn't really understand why these big names that really seemed like they were gelling with Michigan, like a lot of crystal balls are for Michigan with some of these big names, these 5-stars, and they would end up going to the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world. That's perplexing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Not really sure what was going on with Harbaugh recruiting, except for the fact that he was still winning 10 games a year for the most part, 9-10 games a year, and then finally won a natty with a bunch of 3s and 4-stars with a couple of 5-stars peppered in there. So that's why, despite all of the concerning things happening around the transfer portal for Michigan right now, for recruiting being a little lackluster right now, I'm still not panicking because Michigan doesn't normally sign top 5 classes or even top 10 classes. They're usually in the mid-teens. They're usually in the low 20s. So there's still plenty of time to get there. There's still plenty of time to flip commitments. There's still plenty of time to get kids out of the portal. There's still plenty of time for Michigan to build up its 2025 team. But I think that there's a lot of optimism surrounding this too right now as well. I think that, I mean, we just saw Morion Walker's coming back from Ole Miss, I think it was. He's coming back as a wide receiver, which is going to flesh out the wide receiver room a little bit. CJ Charleston, I think is his name, is coming over from Youngstown State. He's also a wide receiver, so that really bolsters that. So yeah, there's definitely some optimism as well.
Yeah, you bring up the word committed. And I think it's interesting how that word doesn't mean it's that Princess Bride line. That word doesn't mean what you think it means, because they're really not committed until I want to say when they're enrolled, but I'm not even sure that counts because I think you almost have to say they're not committed until they are, in cleats walking on the field in September. Yeah. I mean, when you look at Amarian Walker, like, yeah, I think you're right. I think he was the one who went to Ole Miss, but he went there and was there for a few days, and now he's back at Michigan.
Yeah.
So yeah, what does committed mean anymore? I think you're right. It doesn't mean committed anymore. It means I'll probably go there. We'll see.
Yeah, I think to a lot of kids, it means I'm going to go to this school until someone offers me a better gig.
I better,
You
yeah.
know, and a lot of times, like to their credit, a lot of times it happens where recruits want to move back closer to home. Totally understand that. That's great. I completely understand. There was somebody who mentioned that Kentucky was closer to Cleveland than Ann Arbor is. I don't actually know if that's true because I think Cleveland's in northern Ohio, isn't it?
Yeah, Northeast Ohio. Yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know.
yeah, it's up on Lake Erie.
Yeah. So I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a ton of merit to that. Whatever. I think that it's going to turn NIL is going to turn college football slowly but surely into semi-pro. Okay, I mean we've already seen this start to develop. I think it's basically inevitable that college football turns into semi-professional football, and that might just have to be how it is. It's already been the fact that if a kid commits to a school, even if they play in games that season, they can decide to transfer out. So that's why it's so frustrating for college coaches these days because they feel like they have to not only recruit new kids to come to the program, they also have to continuously recruit their own kids to stay at the program, their own players. And that's why I think Michigan is doing NIL the right way. And I mentioned this before, but Michigan fans, we've gotten used to Michigan missing out on some 5-star big name recruits because our recruiting is just not really sure what it was under Harbaugh, but maybe he was working under the philosophy of the right players rather than the best players. That's fine. But I think we're going to have to manage expectations under Sharon Moore, meaning that I think Michigan recruiting is largely going to stay the same. We're going to miss out on a lot of big names because we don't recruit the same way other schools do. We're not willing to drop the bag at the front door. We're not willing to tell kids, like, you come here, we'll give you $1 million. We're going to tell kids, you come here and you can earn your $1 million eventually. I'm just saying $1 million and pulling that out of thin air, but that means that we're going to continue to lose out on big names because there are some big names that are going to want to see that paycheck on up front rather than work for it. And that's just going to have to be how it is.
Now, what do you make of the fact that Chris Peterson over at Blue by 90, with regard to Marquise Davis, does call that a gut punch? Do you agree with him? Is it a gut punch?
It sucks. Probably for people closer to the situation, it sucks because they thought that he was a shoo-in for Michigan. It really did seem like he was a shoo-in for Michigan. But for me, I'm looking at Michigan recruiting as a whole, and I'm saying I'm concerned about the overall class rank. But one player is not going to make or break that. One running back is not going to make or break that. Michigan's got a pretty stacked running back room. I mean, Cole Cabana's there. They got Jordan Marshall. 2025, we're going to be fine. So I think that there's time to improve the overall rank. One player is not going to concern me too much about that.
That's what we think. Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are on the road to 1,000 subs, so we appreciate every sub we have, and we're looking forward to you guys joining us on that road to 1,000. We also have memberships now for 99 cents. You can join us here at the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show, and you get some cool icons, crying Ryan Day, shaking his head Jim Harbaugh. You get the hammer, and you get some cool badges to go along with it. You can catch us live Monday nights at 8 p.m. We do an hour-and-a-half live stream there, talking all things Michigan football, talking with you guys in the chat. Love to have you there. That's going to do it for us. Mac, take us out.
This is the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show. Sam Hartman's looking downfield for Adrian.
Oh! Carter almost has a one-handed catch.
Almost.